Hi everybody, it's Stefan Molyneux from Freedom Aid Radio. Hope you're doing well. This is a scaled down true news. And I was really torn. I was gonna do a big presentation with graphics and charts about how when you vote for Republicans, spending increases, and when you vote for Democrats, war doesn't decrease, and all of that sort of stuff. And all of that is available if you want to look for it. But I ended up not doing that. And I wanted to speak to you just soul to soul, so to speak, to hopefully get you out of this mad delusion and self-abuse called voting. And the reason is that you don't want to vote. I'm going to tell you, you don't want to vote because of the facts. The facts are that voting means nothing. It's worse than meaning nothing. It encourages participation in a coercive and destructive system. It gives sanction to evil. And people have been voting for a smaller government for decades. Reagan is still called a fiscal conservative, though federal spending went increased 2/3 under his rule. The federal government has grown by leaps and bounds under the Democrats. Bill Clinton kept the bombing going in Serbia and Iraq. So you don't vote because you think that voting will set you free or restrain government in any kind of way, because you're not an idiot. I mean, I'm going to speak to you as an intelligent, aware, brilliant human being, which is, if you weren't, you wouldn't be watching this. And so I'm not going to give you facts, because facts would be insulting to you. Facts would be to indicate that you are unable to process the basic reality of the world that you live in and the historical evidence of the futility of trying to restrain an agency of violence like the state by begging for crumbs from the table or favors. So you know that the government is fundamentally coercive. It is a coercive institution. That's what it does. That's all it is. And you know that voting is a pitiful plea. It is a beg. Please, master, give me back a little bit of what you have stolen. And I'm not going to insult you by pretending that that is an argument that is anything other than an emotional panic and a fear of increased predation and a begging for favors. The reality of the state is that they'll take whatever they want from you because they have the guns and the jails and the military, and that they will attempt to bribe you to get you to participate and give them moral sanction for their theft by getting you to participate in a system that allows you to choose this, that, and the other. Of course, you can only choose your master. You can't choose not to be a slave, which of course is why the whole thing is so patently ridiculous. They take your money to reward their enemies, to reward their friends and to punish their enemies, and they will dangle. You can look at this in any of the campaigns. Ooh, we'll give you a little tax credit. Ooh, we'll give you a little tax break. Ooh, we'll give you a little bit of control over your retirement. Ooh, we'll give you a little bit of money for your medical expenses. Ooh, we'll do this. And it's all ridiculous, all bribery. It's embarrassing. You're not allowed to bribe them, but the whole point of the system is to bribe you with the leftovers of what they have stolen from you in the first place. So I'm not going to insult you by giving you facts that you already have. So I'm just going to make an appeal. This is a blatant emotional appeal. I think that there are very good arguments in it, but I'm not going to insult your intelligence with facts that you can easily get a hold of yourself. We're going to talk about what is going on in the realm of emotion, in the realm of self-esteem, in the realm of pride, when it comes to thinking about voting. Do you know what voting is, fundamentally? Have you ever seen this scene? Maybe this happened to you. You go to school, you're a kid, little kid, maybe it's your first day, maybe it's whatever. You're early on. And the older kids grab some candy or some whatever, right? And what they do is they then stand on either side of you and they toss this candy back and forth, and you run, back and forth. Hey, give me my candy back. I want my candy, guys. Well, that's voting. They take from you, and then you take the runaround trying to beg for a little bit of the scraps back. So what I'm going to try and do in this video is appeal to your base human pride. I mean, God, what a pitiful spectacle to beg your political masters for a few scraps back from the riches they have stolen from you at gunpoint. How pitiful and ridiculous is that? And what a self-shaming, self-abusing action it is to run around in the playground begging for what was rightfully yours to be returned to you in little scraps, whatever we feel will delude you into giving us your sanction and your support. When they take your candy and they're throwing it back and forth in the playground, what do you do? Well, you can't get the candy back. You can't get your tax money back from the state. You can't get control of your life back from the state because they have the guns. They run the show. They have the guns. Well, you simply don't participate. You say, that candy is not worth my pride. The spectacle of me running around and begging for people to give me back what they have stolen from me when they're never going to do it anyway is too shameful. It is too embarrassing. It is too pitiful for me to engage in that behavior. I am going to walk away. Keep the fucking candy. Keep my money. I'm not going to beg you to give it back. I'm not going to plead with you. I'm not going to get on my knees. I'm not going to engage in the fantasy that this is at all about me or about virtue or about control or about getting good things done in the world. I am not going to give you that sanction. I am not going to participate in this violent institution. And really, the presidency, I mean, come on, people. You don't have to be brain surgeons. And I'm not telling you anything you don't know emotionally. You don't have to be brain surgeons to understand that changing the president changes nothing about the system. It's like you're trading in an old Lada for a BMW and all you get is the old Lada back with a BMW hood ornament on the top and they say, hey, we upgraded you. You're changing the hood ornament on the car. It's nothing. It's a ridiculous illusion. What are your choices? Cranky old fascist versus creepy hands in your pocket socialist? These are your choices and you're going to participate in this? Have some pride, for God's sakes. Walk away. There is no virtue to be gained from attempting to grab control of the gun and give it to the people you like so that virtue can be accomplished. You cannot achieve virtue by pointing guns at people. I mean, look, I can understand selling your soul, compromising your values, getting involved in this sickening, disgusting empire situation called voting for the US government. I could understand selling out if you got at least a reasonable price. If you're going to sell your soul, hold out for something little more than a futile series of fucking hanging chads that change nothing. Nothing! You're selling your soul for nothing! It's not going to change based on voting. You know this. Wake up to what you already know. You're not being paid $1 million to participate in this brutal system, in this empire with hundreds of military bases, in this system that slaughters Iraqis. They're not leaving Iraq until the empire comes down. They're still in Japan, for God's sakes. 60 plus years after the end of the Second World War, they built permanent military bases. It's a fantasy that they're leaving because you're going to vote. You're livestock to them. They milk you for money to bribe their friends. And you, on occasion, when the mood strikes. Do you know what it is, your relationship with the state? And we'll talk about America collectively here. Again, this is stuff that you all know. What you are as a voter is you are inheriting a 300-year abusive relationship. It's like you've had a 300-year marriage to a guy who beats the shit out of you every day. Now, yeah, in the beginning, he was weaker, he was smaller, he didn't beat you up, but he's been working out. He's now about 10 times your size, and he beats the shit out of you every day. And after 300 years of this marriage, what are you doing? Well, you're running around saying, oh no, you see, this time he's going to change. He's going to be better. He's going to be nice to me. He's going to give me what I want. He's going to bring me flowers. There's going to be romance and ponies. It's crap. It's bullshit. They take with guns and throw millions in jail. This is an abusive relationship, and after 300 fucking years, wake up to the reality of what it is. It is brutality with rhetoric. It is a fist in the glove of kindly speeches. And what do you do after a 300-year abusive relationship where you get beaten up more and more every day? You get a divorce. You walk away. You take your pride and leave. You don't legitimize a violent, coercive, brutal, hierarchical, hegemonic system by pretending it's voluntary, by pretending that you have a say, by pretending that the brutality of war and empire and violence and enslavement and coercion and jailing, the rape rooms of prisons have millions of people in them, the vast majority of whom ended up there because they carried the wrong kind of vegetation in their fucking pockets. This is a fascist, brutal dictatorship. And if you participate, you are saying it is voluntary. You are trying to work with the illusion that if you vote, the gun will be pointed at someone else than you. But it won't. Obama, McCain, it doesn't matter. No matter who you vote for, the government stays in power. And no one's talking about the real issues anyway. The fact that your income taxes goes to pay interest on a debt that you never incurred, that's not being talked about. Nobody ever says, we're going to stop taking money from you in the first place rather than give you little breaks back. We're going to cancel these debts that you had nothing to do with. No, your livestock to pay off this debt. And voting is the fence. Voting is the chain link fence. Voting is the electrified fence. There are choices that you can make. Instead of, and I linked a video I did on freeing yourself from politics. You can check it out to the right. But there are things that you can do. Instead of watching politics and, who said what at which rally, and is he a Muslim, and is he... This is a soap opera that sinks you into the blood of humiliating subjugation. Again, it's just a matter of pride. Don't beg for your freedom. Don't beg for scraps. Don't pray and hope and wish that scratching some shit in a little booth is going to change freedom in your life. It's not. It never has. It never will. You could vote in Rome as well in the past. And Athens, as Socrates found out. So, fuck politics. Forget spending your time following this bullshit, distracting soap opera of whether the socialist or the fascist ends up in the White House. If they can do a whole lot, you're already in a dictatorship. And if they can't, and so don't participate. And if they can't, forget it. What can you do with your time? Everything is a zero-sum game. Every minute you spend on politics is a minute you're not spending doing something productive to actually make the world free, including raising your self-esteem. We have to outgrow slavery. We have to be greater and bigger and more confident than tax-fucking livestock slaves. You build up your pride. You build up your self-esteem. You build up your knowledge. You build up your virtue. You build up your strength. And we outgrow the slavery. We outgrow being beasts of burden for our rulers. So we educate ourselves. We talk to people about virtue. We talk to people about pride. We talk to people about the nature of violence inherent in the system. We talk to people about a better life. We talk to people about opportunities for real freedom in your life, for virtue, for voluntarism in your life, where you can do it, where it is possible, where you have effect, where you have control. Let the other fucking livestock run down and go, we're going to vote, everything's going to change. But you and I know better. You and I have the pride to not subjugate ourselves to this pathetic enslaving ritual. So when it comes time to vote, read a book on freedom, or read one of my books if you like. They're all free. Talk to your friends, talk to your family, talk to strangers about virtue and pride and voluntarism and the evils of the state. Do not set foot in this abattoir of empire and slavery and subjugation and imprisonment and kidnapping and extraordinary rendition and torture. Do not participate in this institution founded on crimes, which executes war crimes, genocide, wars, murder, kidnapping, imprisonment on a daily basis. Don't participate. Don't beg. Don't beg. But stand with pride and say, I do not participate with violence. I do not yell at rain clouds. I do not wrestle for control of the gun, but simply and forevermore point out that violence is evil. I will not participate in it. I will not subjugate myself to this fetid ritual, this ridiculous, magical bullshit called voting. They will not get my sanction for what they are doing. I will not vote in protest. I will not vote with the illusion that I will become free by begging for freedom. But instead, I will step back and I will not engage and I will withdraw and I will speak with pride and virtue and confidence about what real freedom is in this world, which is not running after your political masters, hoping to suck up some of the blood that falls from the corpses they carry. But love and pride and virtue in our private lives will spread the strength we need to outgrow our slavery. Thank you.
Hi everybody, it's Stefan Molyneux from Free Domain Radio. I hope that you're doing very well. This is True News. Current Events Clarified, number 6, October the 30th, 2008. Voting, Part 2. Brutal, smiling ballot bribery. Our good friend Hamlet has some wonderful things to say about the voting process and particularly the charisma of politicians. Oh, villain, villain, damn smiling villain. My tables, meet it is I should set it down, that one may smile and be a villain. What am I talking about? What villainy is here revealed? Well, this is how the government works, of course. We have this essential called taxation. Good voluntaristic folks like you and I create value through the division of labor and specialization and trade in the free market. We create lots of lovely money, and what happens then is a certain group hives off, uses violence to create the state and take our money through the threat of force or imprisonment. And what happens then is they take a small portion of the money that they take from us and they use it to pay the enforcers, the people who use the guns against us. This is the standard model for any organized crime, which the government is the most successful example. And to use our friendly, I guess we'll call this Joe the Farmer, this example would be that I have a herd of cows, and from the profits that I accrue through milking and slaughtering them, I build fences around them. And the fences, of course, are cheaper than the profits that I make from controlling them, and this is how it basically works. Not to call farmers criminals, of course, but this is part one. But the second way that the government will take your money is through inflation. So again, here we have our lovely people who are creating all that lovely loot. And what happens is there are times when the government does not want to spend money on enforcement or increase the amount of taxes because that causes people to get upset. So they magically create all of this silly monopoly fiat money. And what that does, of course, is it diminishes the value of your money. This is the hidden tax called inflation, which occurs when you pump more money into a static provision of goods and services. The value of each dollar declines. And that's another way that it works. You say, well, this isn't directly violent. Well, it is, but it's a little different, because what happens is if any private citizen attempts to do what the government calls an essential public service, which is to create money out of thin air, type stuff into a bank account, they, of course, are called, ooh, so evil counterfeiters, and the gun is turned to point at these people. The government doesn't want competition in the creation of magic money any more than the mafia wants competition in the extraction of protection money from helpless victims. This, of course, is fraudulent and wrong. It's exactly like a farmer diluting his milk with water and selling it for the same price. He just is. Everyone gets less nutrition and he gets more money. It's completely unjust. And then we have the magic world of debt. This is the third major way in which the government will steal from you. And we've got all these lovely people in the free market creating value voluntarily. And the problem is that if the government increases its use of force directly taxes more and so on, the value of what they receive per dollar spent on enforcement declines. And that's not always what they want to do. So if we introduce a magical, let's say, Chinese dragon that has the magical ability to create currency out of thin air, much like the federal government or the Fed, then this magical Chinese dragon will lend money to the U.S. government. And why will they lend money to the U.S. government? Well, in order to harvest the future taxes of U.S. taxpayers, right? Because that tax money is then shipped to the Chinese dragon in the form of interest payments. And to take our farm metaphor once more, this is like a farmer who takes out a loan based on the future earnings of his livestock's his livestock's milk and their meat. And this is another way that the government sells off your future for the sake of consumption in the present. So how does this all tie into voting? Well, let's have a look at how elections actually work. So again, bunch of people, a bunch of money. You need both, otherwise there's nothing to steal. And we have those who want to use violence to get stuff. And lots of people do, right? I mean, it's easier than actually creating something and trading it in the free market is to just go and steal. And so we have corporations, which are state-created and controlled enterprises. Even if they're in the free market, a corporation is a way of limiting liability and was introduced in the 19th century in order to protect rich people from going broke. We have unions, public sector, private sector unions, special interests of all kinds that you can imagine. Now, the problem is that, of course, these groups kind of want to take your money, right? But they can't fund the gun themselves, right? If they each come up with their own private army, it would actually not be profitable to take your money. So they want to offload the costs of enforcement to the state, right? And of course, if they all get their own army, which, as I talk about in my free book, Practical Anarchy, couldn't ever happen, there would just be it would not be profitable. There would also be endless civil war. So that doesn't work, right? For each of them to get their own gun doesn't work. So they'll leave the money in your hands, and what they'll do instead is they will turn to their friendly local government, and they will take a small amount of their profits, or some degree of their profits, and they will give it to people who want to get into office, right? And through that, the money is then, through the monopoly of force that the government represents, through the, one police force, one army, one court system, one jail, no competition, no efficiency, no optimization, then the money goes to the government, and the government then use it to pay off the special interests. And this really is what voting is. And the relationship is not you and the state, but the state and the special interests. So I think it's really, really important to remember, because there's lots of talk floating around during an election about everything the government is going to give you, every wonderful goodie that the government is going to give you. But the government no more produces money than the mafia produces voluntary goods and services. Violence produces nothing except destruction. The government has no money to give you. The government has no money to give you. Repeat after me, right? It's very, very important to remember. The government can only return portions, small portions, dribs and drabs of the money it has first stolen from you, right? So this is the important basic reality to remember. It's like the mafia gives gifts to their victims. It's like, hey, I took $10,000 from you, Mr. Restaurateur, but hey, I'll send you a gift basket at Christmas. Possibly the worst accent ever done. And the problem is that this actually turns us against each other, right? So what happens is the government takes the money from everyone and then dangles it in front of people. And this turns us against each other. Like, well, if you get it, I don't get it. And if you get it, I don't get it. So we end up squabbling amongst ourselves, right? Like starving ducks with a few bits of bread thrown down. We don't ever look at the fence around us and the control and the violence as a whole. We're just fighting amongst ourselves to pick up these scraps, which is pretty pitiful. So here's some examples. You could get them from Nader, from Obama, from McCain, from the Green Party, anyone you want, but we'll just pick the two biggies, right? What is Obama going to do? Enact a windfall profits tax to provide a $1,000 emergency energy rebate to American families. Ooh, look, goodies. Look, they're bribing you with your own money. Oh, here's another one. $50 billion to jumpstart the economy and prevent 1 million Americans from losing their jobs. You see, if you put caps, it suddenly becomes real. Oh, and invest $150 billion over 10 years, right? to advance the next generation of biofuels and fuel infrastructure. The Obama-Biden plan will increase funding for federal workforce training programs. Create a national infrastructure reinvestment bank. And they support doubling federal funding for basic research. And this is all nonsense. It's a fairy tale. You know, they might as well say, you know, we will send you a dozen pixies and half a dozen unicorns every day. They don't have anything to give you. They don't create anything. It's all stolen money, right? Through taxes, through deficit financing, or through inflation. It's all a shell game. They have nothing to offer you. It's all an illusion. And but they of course always talk in terms of voluntarism. The guilt and shame and ugliness and violence of the state is always revealed through this language of voluntarism. We can imagine that every rapist imagines that his victim really wants it and says it was a date. In the same way, this coercive violence that is used to fund everything that the state does is always reframed as, we're going to invest, a reinvestment, infrastructure reinvestment, we're going to create this, we're going to increase this funding, but this all terms as if they actually have something to offer you, which, well, they don't. So here's some examples from our good friend Cranky Pants McCain. Well, John McCain proposes a 1-year spending pause to evaluate programs. Well, I mean, this has nothing to do with saving you money. This has everything to do with increasing the power of the presidency, right? So if he pauses spending on all programs, what he's going to have is a whole bunch of, vulture chicks. Give me some worms, right? They're all going to be pestering and begging him to increase their funding. And so there's going to be a feeding frenzy on the power of John McCain to increase the power of the presidency. It's got nothing to do with saving your money. Oh, he's interested in buying up bad mortgage loans, converting them into low-interest FHA insured loans. So he's going to bribe you, after completely shafting you economically with all of the stuff that I talked about in the previous video on the housing market. They may throw you a few shekels. So after they put your home in danger, they may throw you a few shekels. After they have set fire to your home, they might give you a bucket of water. Summer gas tax holiday, which will do nothing but ensure shortages. And of course, what is so magically wonderful about the summer that they shouldn't steal your money at gunpoint? But in the fall, winter, and spring, the ethics reverse themselves. I don't think that they can do that to gravity. They also can't do it to ethics. Student loan continuity plan, right, to snatch up the young souls who might otherwise be drawn to the admittedly charismatic Obama. Oh, this one. No American should be denied access to quality and affordable coverage for healthcare simply because of a pre-existing condition. Well, this is all complete madness. It's very beneficial for those who didn't take out insurance when they were healthy, but all of this is going to do is jack up the price of healthcare. I mean, if imagine if you didn't have to buy $1 million health insurance until you were on your deathbed at the age of 90. And it cost you $200 a month or $150 a month. Well, you would give them $150 or $200 a month, and you would get $1 million, right, in terms of your life insurance. The whole point of insurance is it's a hedge against the risk, right? So you pay when you're healthy, and then you collect when you're sick. If you can't be denied because of a pre-existing condition, all that's going to happen is people won't take out health insurance until they're sick, which will drive up the premiums for everyone, and then, of course, everybody will blame the free market. Debt relief. Well, this is an interesting one, I think. So both Obama and McCain are for canceling third world debt, you see, because it is unsustainable, it harms the people, undermines the infrastructure, reduces the education, and people are not responsible for state debt. So when a government ends up in too much debt, we should just cancel the debt because that's the morally right thing to do, and it might get me a private concert from Bono. Well, if it's good for Uganda and it's good for Ghana, why is it not good for you? Why not cancel U.S. debts? If you can repudiate government debts when they become unsustainable, unpayable, it's bad for the people, destroys the infrastructure, enslaves the population. Why is it morally good for Ghana and morally bad for Arkansas? It makes no sense whatsoever if you think that they have any interest whatsoever in helping you out financially. The same principles apply. U.S. debt's unsustainable, harms the people. They're not responsible for state debts, harms education, healthcare, infrastructure. Of course, your income tax is only going to pay the interest on the national debt, so why not just repudiate it? And then they don't have to give you these little tax credits, these manipulative little things like, if you put your money in here, we won't tax it quite as much as if you put... They don't need to do any of that. Because you get 20, 30, 40% of your income back right away. Just repudiate the debt. They already advocated it for other countries. Why not for you? Madness. This is a form of indentured servitude, right? This is what they used to do with sharecroppers, right? They just simply load them down with debt and end up owning them forever. And we've had, 18-month election cycle? It's not been talked about once, right? This is very important. This is the magical crap that you're being forced to eat and live in, if you want. Hey, look, if they're not going to stop stealing from you, then all they have left is to bribe you. That's all they have left, is to bribe you. And that's why I call it a matter of pride. It's just a matter of pride. Don't bribe me. Don't rip out my kidney and then offer to give me a dialysis machine at reduced rates. I mean, at some point, we just have to stand tall and stop begging. And stop pretending to participate. And giving them sanction for what it is that they're doing. And groveling for our pennies back from these rapacious sociopaths. Letting go of voting, letting go of this fantasy that you will become free by attempting to get people to point the gun at other people. We got to let go of this fear and greed. Government operates on fear and greed, right? Say, oh, well, if my guy doesn't win, the other guy is going to destroy the country and harm me and continue the war and blah, blah, blah. Well, it's nonsense. Both guys are going to harm you. The entire system harms you. The whole system is around pillaging you. Right? The vaguely intelligent cows don't say, I want one farmer over another. They say, I want my freedom. I won't settle for anything less. I'm not going to play this game. Or say, oh, well, I want to vote to get some money back or to prevent other money from being taken. You can't get any money back. There's no money to get back. There is no money. They have no money. It's gone. It's spent. You can't get it back. All you can do is get them to print more, which ensures inflation. Or they're going to increase your taxes. Or they're going to borrow. You can't get the money back. There's no money. There's no money. Look, don't sell your future. Don't sell the future of your children for a few pennies on the dollar that was originally yours. The whole system is corrupt. The whole system needs to be changed. We need to go to voluntarism. And we need to. This is not going to work. But this goal, this idea that we are going to vote ourselves into becoming free, we're going to participate in this coercive, brutal, and criminal system, and magic fairy dust and pixies and flying unicorns and daisies and freedom is going to sprout from the shell craters of increased violence. It's a fantasy. And I hate to say it, and I'm not making anything up. Americans have tried to limit the power of the state for 300 years, trying to control the government for 300 years. It just grows and grows and grows. I'm just pointing out the inevitable facts, the basic empirical reality. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. And I know that's startling. I know that's frightening. I know that's unsettling. But we need to pry ourselves away from these mad delusions if we're actually going to help the world become a better place for our children. Violence is not going to work. Attempting to get people, yelling at people to point the gun at someone else is not going to set you free. Voting is not going to work. It's not going to work. Because the whole point of the state, right? The whole point of the state, why it never works, is that it avoids the basic reality of the state, which is that we have people in government, and we have what I call the gun in the room, and I've done some podcasts on this. The whole point of voting is to pretend that there's no gun in the middle, right? That it's voluntary, it's participatory, it's democracy, it's an orderly transition of power, it's a public-private enterprise, it's this. I mean, they always use these words. They don't use violence and voluntary. They use public and private, too innocuous sounding. Oh, it's a government partnership with unions and business and right. All they're ever trying to do is to get you to not see and talk about the gun that is in the room. Right? Say there's an elephant in the room, a dysfunctional family, and everybody edges around this elephant. Well, everybody looks at this interaction and ignores the gun in the room. And voting is a way of pretending there's no gun in the room. And if we're ever going to diminish the use of violence to achieve solutions to social problems, which never solves anything, makes them worse, we have to accept and recognize the basic reality that the government is based on coercion, and that we are using coercion to try and solve complex social problems, which is never going to work and is only going to ever make things work. And the violence is going to continue to expand until, right, the best disinfectant is sunlight. We point out repeatedly the gun in the room and we don't participate under the threat of violence. And that really was what the state is about, what the participation called voting is about. Just have to keep pointing this out. Any dysfunctional interaction continues until one party stops. And I can tell you it's not going to be them, for sure. So it's up to you. It's up to you. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If more on philosophy of freedom, you know this, blah, 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 freedomainradio.com. Drop by. I got free, nothing but free everything. I look forward to your donations. Remember that to get the word out does take some listener participation, and I really do appreciate all the support that people give me and the sharing that they do with the videos, or that you do with the videos. Thank you so much. And I hope that you will spend next Tuesday talking to people about freedom, or at least just telling your children that you love them. Thank you so much. I will talk to you soon.
So, you chose the brother over the grandpa. I think that's wonderful. I think that the American electorate should be duly praised and honored and given all the respect in the world for making such a bold and different choice for the commander-in-chief. And I, as an anarchist, blow serious kisses in your direction. You chose a different generation. You chose a different race. You chose a different cultural background, a non-American cultural background in many ways, a different middle name, a different life experience, no military, an academic, somebody who's more or less a humanist and does not appear to be a fundamentalist in Christian terms. So that's wonderful, because of course the democratic theory is that this should produce a staggering amount of change in your system. You could not make a bigger conceivable choice than that between George Bush, John McCain, and Barack Obama. So, you know, fantastic. I know it was the older folks who weren't so much with Mr. Mochaccino, but the younger folks very much giving him respect, and yes, we can, and change, and boy, you are just going to take the country in a new direction. According to the theory of participative democracy, this should be a big, honkin' stellar, nay, interstellar change in the direction of America. You did not vote for the continuation of everything that exists within the government, plus a few extra layers to the shit sandwich you and your children will have to eat in terms of debt. You did not choose for all of the existing government programs to continue, and then for a bunch of new socialist healthcare, in particular ones, to be added to it. You looked for significant change, but not the continuation of government with the addition of new programs, new spending, new debts, new obligations. Clearly, if we get socialized medicine or heavily subsidized payments for healthcare insurance, then all we have is more government and control. If stuff doesn't get shaved away, but new stuff gets added, clearly all we've had is an expansion in the size and power and, of course, coercive actions of the government. And, of course, we've heard all of this before. Radical reform, Reagan promised it, of course, the era of smaller government, and he increased the federal deficit and spending by 2/3. Bill Clinton, the era of big government is over. We're going to end welfare as we know it. And, of course, within a few years, welfare spending was up 20-30%. We have George Bush, who is going to have a humble foreign policy without nation building. And, of course, that all changes. So this change, and this is more directed to our young friends there, this change that has always been promised before, and yet all that happens is the government continues to grow asymptotically. So, yeah, I'm just saying, you know, keep your eye on this one and test the thesis about real change within government based upon the widest possible divergence of potential candidates that has ever been seen and likely ever will be seen in any democratic sphere. Now, I know a lot of people were interested in what is called defensive voting, right? So it's like, well, I don't want Iraq to go on and on, so I'm going to vote for Barack Obama. In other words, I'm not voting for Barack Obama, I am voting against John McCain. Well, of course, Barack Obama has absolutely no way to know that. What he experiences, and not irrationally so, given that he can't know that, what he experiences is a resounding mandate for his programs. He's going to look upon this vote as, my God, they just love my programs, don't they? Let us to expand the spending and get everything going that was in my platform, because he doesn't view it as, well, they didn't like John McCain or George Bush. He views it as they really like me, and that, of course, is what he is going to take as part of his activism. So, as an amazing mentalist, I'm going to roll forth a few predictions about what is going to happen with the, so insurmountable mandate for change that American voters have handed to Barack Obama. Well, the first thing he's going to have to do, of course, is pass a flurry of legislation, which is going to pay off the special interests who donated to his cause, right? So unions, public sector workers, the sick, the elderly, the minorities, all of those people who heavily invested in his cause. The young folks will get various grants and benefits for colleges or, stuff like that. So the first thing that's going to happen is a massive expansion in state power and programs and spending. And there's a possibility that there will be some change in troop strengths or troop levels in Iraq. Though, of course, my guess is that now that the election has altered, the last thing that Al-Qaeda and the other Islamic extremist groups, the last thing they want is for the troops to be withdrawn unless they're replaced by defense contractors, because their goal, of course, is to bankrupt the United States, as the United States taught them to do in the 1980s with the Soviet Union and Afghanistan. So they're just taking the same tools that they were taught to defeat the last superpower, to defeat this superpower, which is to collapse its spending potential, drive it to bankruptcy. So the only way that they will be happy is if the troops, which are relatively cheap, are replaced by private contractors who are even more expensive, thus harming the public purse even more. So there may be some realignment of troops in Iraq or Afghanistan, but my strong suspicion is that the violence is going to erupt again, because they don't want troops to be withdrawn, because the whole point of getting them to attack an Islamic country was to bring the American troops in harm's way and drain the public purse. So for sure, the violence was diminishing in Iraq, within Iraq, so that neither president would make a commitment to pull out. Now that they have not done so, made that firm commitment, they are going to, the Mujahideen are going to attack the Americans even more, thus driving up the public perception that we need to stay. There may be some withdrawals, but then they will be replaced by private contractors who fly sort of under the radar of the public. So that's not going to change very much. So there will be a flurry of expanded legislation to pay off the special interests. Sadly, but then the inevitable disasters will come up and will be duly reported by a sorrowful press, such as, well, we can't get out of Iraq or Afghanistan because of X, Y, and Z. The violence has erupted. We need to maintain, blah, blah, blah. It's not ready. We're going to lose. So that's going to continue, of course. We had no idea that the financial situation was this bad. By golly, it was even worse than we thought, and that's going to put the brakes on our spending, you see. For the time being, we will not be able to enact all of the goodies that we promised you. Gosh, we're so sorry, but the visa bill was just so much higher. There were so many more hidden costs that we thought that, damn, we're just not going to be able to give you all the goodies that you want. Unforeseen events have overtaken our prior plans. We have to be adaptive. We have to be flexible. We have to be loosey-goosey. We have to respond to changing situations. But don't worry, we're going to get back to that change thing real soon. It's going to happen now. No, wait, now. Tomorrow. No, it's coming. Oh, wait. Oh, damn it. You know what? I need another term. You're going to need to vote for me again. But by God, when I get back in, I'm going to make all those changes happen. Oh, it is all so predictable. So this is my suggestion. If my suggestion means anything to you, which it probably doesn't, but, just play around with it as an idea. I say, get behind Barack Obama. Work day and night to pursue and enact this change. right? Because this is what you want. Voted for change. Now get behind him and make the change happen. Work night and day, donate time, energy, effort, sell kidneys, do whatever you need to get behind this change and make it happen. Throw everything into this. March into the future with him. Devote yourself to creating change. Put everything you have into this fantasy. Because that way you won't have any excuses when the change fails to occur. Right? Put yourself, this is how you get closure in dysfunctional relationships, is you work as hard as you can to make them better. Marriages, business, you work as hard as you can, make every sacrifice, every compromise you conceivably can. Then when you've done everything you can and the relationship does not work out, you get the closure, which of course is where you start to actually begin to look creatively and intelligently for alternate solutions to the use of coercion to achieve social goals, which is government and voting and so on. Because nothing will get better. I can guarantee you that. A few people, some groups will get the blood money that's ripped off from the future or from others, or through inflation, the printing of fiat money. Yeah, some people will make out like bandits through the state, right? The mafia and their hitmen make out like bandits, and their friends, and the shops they frequent. But nothing will change. This is not anything that is shocking or surprising, and if you understood that the government is forced, you would understand why I say that. Expecting additional coercion to improve a moral situation is like saying, my wife will love me more if I beat her more, right? She loves me less when I beat her more, but when I just beat her double, she will then turn the corner and love me. And of course, that will never happen. You cannot scream at your children and then assume that screaming will make you love them. You cannot beat someone up and make him your friend. You cannot rape someone into loving you. Violence, coercion, deception, hypocrisy, fraud, and theft can never produce virtue and a positive outcome. Simply can't. So all that is going to happen with Barack Obama is he's going to expand the power and size and violence and coercion and brutality and control of the government. And he's not going to take on existing special interests and whittle them down, because that's not what people paid him for. People paid him, they donated, they gave him the resources so that he would get them goodies. And that's why the government always gets bigger, right? Because each politician sells off the future and our children to a new special interest group bribes them. And of course, he gets mileage and donations out of that. And he only gets opposition if he actually says he's going to reduce spending. So everybody just adds more shit to the sandwich that the next generation has to eat. For instance, here's something that would represent real change, right? Real change, which is, of course, the Americans only need the Department of Defense, Department of Homeland Security, and this massive spending on arms because 700 bases in more than 100 countries has pissed off the world. So if there was going to be real change in America, what would happen is these bases would all start to get closed down. You would dismantle the Department of Homeland Security. You would cut the national defense budget in half or three quarters. You would withdraw all the troops back home. And what would happen then? Well, of course, you would be able to rescind the Patriot Act and the Patriot Act 2. You would be able to you'd close down Guantanamo Bay. You would be able to do all of those things. See, that would be actual change. But that's not going to happen. Or actual change would be the prosecution of George Bush for war crimes, which, of course, is perfectly legal and perfectly valid under existing U.S. law, that he's responsible for the deaths of thousands of Americans, therefore is a mass murderer. Well, that would be real change, to hold people accountable for the genocides they do. Well, that's not going to happen. He's going to get a pension and speaking tours and go and blather on at Christian knuckleheads until the end of times. So those would be examples of real change within the system. But it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. We're going to get additional spending. We're going to get the expansion of coercion and violence. We're going to get an ever acceleration towards the inevitable bankruptcy. And at some point, this is my invitation to you. And this is a tough one, I know. But seriously, people, maybe this is because I got a kid in the way in a few weeks, but at some point, we have to grow up and we have to stop fantasizing that violence is going to bring us the beautiful world that we want and deserve, and which we can achieve in a generation if we do the right things. The first virtue is honesty. The first step towards virtue and power is the discarding of illusion. I mean, that's what we have to do first. We have to step away from collective fantasies, step away from the fantasies that the gun can bring beauty and love and truth and virtue. The gun, the bomb, the army, the prison, the police. Can't do it. It only destroys. At some point, we have to grow up and we have to start taking responsibility for bringing virtue, peace, and progress to our own lives. Not this fantasy that violence and group delusions can improve the world. Not the fantasy that some well-spoken fellow is going to march in right over the hill and make our life and our world a beautiful place. It's not going to happen. This is the hook, right, that you are exploited from. Right? This fantasy that someone else is going to make your life better. Someone else is going to make you free. Someone else is going to deal with the problems of the world. Just hand over your money, hand over your power, hand over your freedom, and everything will be better. The perpetual war for perpetual peace. Perpetual violence for perpetual progress, which never occurs. The violence escalates and progress declines. And you have every right to cling to your fantasies if you want. You can go live in a cave and believe in Baal or Set for all I care, or anyone cares. But this fantasy is different. This fantasy affects my child. This fantasy affects me. This fantasy affects hundreds of thousands of dead and fly-buzzed Muslim bodies. Your fantasy has got 2 million of your fellow countrymen in jail, the vast majority for completely non-violent, innocuous, quote, crimes. Your fantasy for political solutions is shredding the soul of the world. It is not your choice to make, to use violence to solve problems, because the violence affects others. The violence affects others. It affects people working peacefully in the Twin Towers in 2001. It affects 500,000 Iraqi children who die for want of medicine and food and water because of an embargo. It affects everyone in the world who glares balefully at the marching US soldiers of the new Rome. You are shredding the soul of the world through your addiction to the fantasy that some white political knight is going to ride over the horizon and change the world and save the world, and that all you have to do is stuff yourself into a fucking booth and check something. Stop being lazy. Stop being lazy. Stop wallowing in the fantasy that some distant soul waving a gun is going to make the world better. Get off your hiney, get out of the booth, turn off CNN, and work to bring reason and truth to the world you live in. And stop praying for gods who only ever arrive as devils.